And good afternoon. We welcome you into the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers, I'm Patrick, and you know what? We're going right to the phone lines to start things off, because when you get a coach who's getting ready to head to the Super Regionals and he says 3 o'clock, you say, how high? No, that's not quite how that goes. We welcome in the head coach of the Super Regional bound LSU baseball Tigers. He is Paul Mainieri. Coach, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Hey, you know, most people announce their retirement and then they take their vacation days and they try to leave as quickly as possible. But Coach, you just keep wanting to hang around.
I know if these guys won't let me retire. I keep telling them, geez, I want to fade off into the sunset. But, you know, they won these 4 games when we were facing elimination, and I kept telling them after the game, guys just won't let me go away. So, I'm happy to keep working, to be honest with you. It was really a remarkable performance by our guys. You know, we got shut down in that first game by a really tremendous pitcher, and we had our backs against the wall and had to play a really tough Central Connecticut State team. I know that name doesn't strike the fear in a lot of people's hearts when you think about college baseball, but I promise you that they were really a good ball club. And, man, we had to fight and scratch and claw to win that game. And once we won that game, our team really loosened up and played great baseball after that. Here we are winning the regional, getting ready for a super regional at Tennessee this weekend.
I've got to imagine, Coach, that the idea that you're retiring had to add some difference of emotion, because you've been through regionals before. You've been to supers. You've been to the College World Series. You've won the College World Series. How different was it emotionally for you, knowing that this is kind of the last ride, and this isn't, you know, the vintage number one type team? This is a fighting and clawing team that had to scrap their way, as you mentioned, from the elimination bracket. Is it a different emotion winning this year?
For me personally, you're talking about?
Yeah.
It was. I'll have to admit it. You know, I mean, when I'm getting dressed in the hotel room and walking out the door, you know, the thought crosses your mind, is this the last time I'm ever going to put a baseball uniform on? And sometimes the emotion overwhelms you. You know, since I was a little boy, and that was a long time ago. I'll be 64 this summer. You know, I've not known life not putting a baseball uniform on. And, you know, when you think it might be the last time you ever do that, it can play with your emotions quite a bit. And then, you know, you go to the field and, hey, it's not necessarily the most talented team or the most experienced team that you've had in your time, but then you grow to admire your team because they scratch and they claw and they're scrappy and they fight like crazy, and you fall in love with them, and you don't want the season to end for their sake either, because you want them to have a great experience, and you're seeing them grow up before your very eyes, and you know that this experience is doing wonders to mature them as men, you know, as growing up from being young men, young boys to becoming adults. And so you have this whole myriad of emotions going through your mind. And, it's been a unique year. There's no question about that. And I really don't want to see it end. I'd like to see us go out to Knoxville this weekend and play really well and win a couple of games, and see us go up to Omaha and see what we can do there.
Yeah, might as well at this point. I mean, you're still there, Coach. You know, you're still playing. Might as well just go ahead and go to Omaha while you're at it.
Sure, why not? If you can show up, you might as well win.
Yeah, you might as well. Hey, let's talk about the pitching in the last couple of games, because you kind of pulled the old Tampa Bay Rays, where you didn't run a starter out there, you ran an opener out there, like the Rays famously have done the last several years. You know, a guy goes out and gives you an inning. What was the decision process like there, where you decided, hey, we just need someone to go get us through the first inning, and then we can start working it from there?
Well, the first game we did that was against Oregon, I think, with
Wittmeyer.
Wittmeyer.
Yeah.
So Wittmeyer had pitched the 9th inning of the game earlier in the afternoon against Gonzaga. And the turnaround for the next game was only going to be like an hour later. So we were going to be very thin with our pitching, and I figured Wittmeyer would not tighten up, his arm would not get tight, and if we waited until 4 hours later in the sixth or seventh inning to try to use Wittmeyer, then he might be tightened up. So I just thought, well, he's already loose. Let's just go ahead and start the game with him. and try to burn up an inning with Vittmeyer and get some use out of him before he tightened up. The other part of that was I really thought Javen Coleman could give us an outing like he gave us. He's been throwing the ball really well for us, and I thought he might give us 4 to 6 innings. When we have started him, albeit earlier in the year, he has not pitched as well as when we brought him out of the bullpen. So I didn't really want to announce him as a starting pitcher. I really wanted to bring him out of the bullpen because he seems to be more relaxed and just instinctive as a pitcher as opposed to thinking about it and trying to act like a starting pitcher, and then maybe he gets nervous, that type of thing. And then the other thing is they had several left-handed hitters, and I didn't want them to stack their lineup with right-handed hitters knowing we were starting a left-handed pitcher. So I thought, well, let them go ahead and throw those left-handers in there, and if we go to a lefty, they've already got the left-handers in the lineup. Maybe it'll work to our advantage if we bring a lefty out of the bullpen. And if he's hot and he's pitching well, they might just leave those, if they leave those lefties in there for several innings, it could work to our advantage. So all those things kind of played out that way, and Javen went out there and pitched 6 really good innings for us. I got a little greedy and tried to get a 7th inning out of him. He was a little tired, but he ended up walking the batter, and I ended up having to bring in Fontenot then. I should have just started the 8th inning with Fontenot and let him pitch out of the windup, but it ended up working out okay because Fontenot got us through the 8th inning fine. But I knew I was being a little bit greedy trying to get that 8th inning out of Javen Coleman.
Well, isn't that what really regional and even in Omaha, right? Tournament play is about guys coming in and exceeding expectations. If you have success, it's usually because of a Javen Coleman who you think, let's hope we can get a 3-4 innings and he gives you 6. That's, to me, sort of the story of when teams have success in tournament play is when they get those type of outings from guys that you may necessarily not expect them from.
Well, that's a good point. And you can go back to A.J. Labus. The last month of the season, A.J. really struggled, and, he had pitched some good games for us early in the season, and the last 3 or 4 starts were not really typical A.J. Labus starts, and some people were down on him. But I thought there were reasons for him struggling, to be honest with you. A.J. is not a strikeout pitcher. He pitches to contact. He throws a lot of strikes. He doesn't have overpowering stuff. And it just seemed like at the end of the season, the weather had turned really warm. We had a lot of southerly winds, and the ballparks that he was pitching in were not big ballparks in the SEC. So he pitched to contact, and he was giving up a lot of what I thought were routine fly ball outs in most ballparks. In our ballpark, they would have been, and they were flying out of the park in Auburn or Texas A&M and that type of thing. So he really wasn't pitching as poorly as people thought he was. His line score was not good, but I thought there were reasons for it, and I thought he had a chance to pitch well because Oregon's park was a little bit bigger, the temperatures were cooler, the wind wasn't galing out, and he went out there and pitched a really great game for us. I think he went 8 innings, and that really helped our bullpen as well, besides giving us the victory. And I thought Will Helmer's, hadn't been pitching great either, and the rest had done him good. His fastball had a lot of life on it, and he gave us 2 great innings in the championship game. So I think your point is well taken.
Talking to Paul Mainieri, the head coach of the LSU baseball squad, heading to Tennessee for the Super Regionals. Speaking of pitching, Coach, and I think this is something Ben McDonald brought it up during the broadcast, and I'd like you to elucidate on it a little bit because you bring Marceau in. And people may not understand that Marceau, during his regular weekly schedule, was probably his day to go ahead and pitch on the side. Can you talk a little bit about starters and when they elect to then throw bullpens and how many pitches and that kind of thing? Because having Marceau come in and throw for you at that point was not necessarily going to be out of his normal rhythm.
That's exactly right. Now, it's a rather common practice in college baseball to have a starting pitcher do that, pitch out of the bullpen. I personally have not done it very frequently in my college coaching career. In fact, this was the only time I've done it with Landon in his 3 years, and I very rarely have done it. I did it a little bit with Lewis Coleman several years ago. Never did it with Aaron Nola. Never did it with Alex Lang. It just never really did it with pro prospects very frequently. But, our backs were against the wall, and Landon Marceau, is such a fierce competitor. And I'll tell you that really, after we lost that opening game, it was like the second day after, and he came to me and he was like, Coach, I feel great. And I'm telling you, if we get to Monday, I will really want to pitch. I don't know how much I can give you, but I feel great, and I don't want you to worry about me being hurt. It would be my bullpen day anyway, and I just want you to know I really want to pitch, and I'm volunteering, and I don't want you to hesitate at all to use me. But even still, I was very reluctant to do it because I just have never done it because I'm always looking out for the kids' health, and their futures and so forth. In fact, after we beat Oregon the night before in the first game, I actually even discussed it with his parents. And I very rarely discuss things like this with parents. I just manage a club myself. But I pulled them off to the side and talked to them about it to see how they felt about it, discussed it with Landon. And we all agreed that, we would do it and monitor it and make sure that it, see how he felt when he was warming up and how his body felt and so forth. And, we all thought, okay, originally the plan was to let him start the game and pitch no more than 3 innings. But then as I was thinking about it throughout the day, I just thought, what good would it do to have him start the game, go 2 or 3 innings, and then if the rest of the pitching staff didn't pitch well, now we've had him pitch in the game, and really we didn't have a chance to win. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. The only way I'm going to pitch him is if we have a chance to win at the end of the game and the other guys have done the job and we hit the ball well enough to give us a chance to win at the end. And so I talked to him about it during the afternoon, and I said, look, if we're going to do this, we're only going to do it when we get to maybe the 7th or 8th inning. And he was all gung-ho for that. And so sure enough, we got to the 7th. I told him, when we got to the 7th inning, I said, we're going to go with Garrett Edwards in the 7th, you in the 8th, and Fontenot in the 9th. And I thought we'd just use him for 1 inning. Well, things didn't go exactly as planned. Garrett gave up the 2-run homer and then ended up giving up a double. And I thought, well, we got to hold him right here. And Landon was already getting loose to pitch the 8th inning, and he just sped up his warm-ups, and he was ready to come in and get the last out in the 7th inning. And then he pitched so well in the 8th inning. He just came off the field, and he said, Coach, I feel great. Please let me go back out for the 9th inning. So I said, okay, you're going back out for the 9th. And then I just couldn't take the ball away from him. He was out there just competing as hard as he could, and we had a chance to win the championship. And I just don't want to take that experience away from him. And he feels fine, and I don't think there was any risk at all for the kid.
I don't know if you've announced this, and if you haven't, please feel free to just avoid the question, but does he start on Saturday against Tennessee?
Yeah, well, you were right. I have not announced that, and I am going to avoid the question.
That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. I have no problem with that. But hey, thought I might try to get a scoop.
Can I just say this, that my prayers were answered in the NCAA put us on the Saturday, Sunday, Monday schedule instead of Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
No, there's no doubt.
The extra day rest will do our entire pitching staff a lot of good.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen that particular balk before? We've seen lots of balks before, but I've called a lot of baseball at Northwestern, and I have never seen one where the pitcher doesn't know that the fielder's crashing for a potential bunt and looks over and realizes he's got to throw it. He has no choice, but the first baseman is halfway down the line. That's going to be a balk. You can't throw to a guy, it's not on a base. Yeah. You ever seen that before?
I've seen balks before where the pitcher has thrown to an infielder that wasn't on the base, like to a shortstop or a second baseman that didn't go cover the base, and they've called a balk on him. I don't know that I've ever seen that exact one, and I certainly have never seen one at that time of the game where the winning run is crossing home plate in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
So, but it clearly was the correct call. I mean, there was no question about that. And I'm glad we got the hit after that, though, so that we got the insurance run, which ended up being huge for us.
Yeah, it always is. Hey, you mentioned talking to Marceau's parents. Have you? I've got to imagine one guy on your club that has the most overbearing parent of all is Bianco, right? I mean, that guy's got to have the worst overbearing parent of all time, right? Come on.
No, that's exactly the opposite. Yeah, no. Mike, from the time Mike has been here, we have not talked at all. I mean, from the time Drew has been here, Mike and I have not talked once about his son's role on our team. No, he knows how it works when a coach has to make decisions about playing time and so forth. No, Mike's been the model parent, and it's been a great joy to have Drew as a part of our team.
And I imagine it had to be pretty awesome just because you're a parent, you've been through that, to have him be able to watch his kid punch his ticket to the Super Regional and have a big role to play in it as well.
Well, I can only imagine the pride that he must have had in seeing that happen. I know that he won't be able to come to Knoxville to watch his son play, but he'll send Cammie, his wife, to watch him play, I'm sure.
Well, already Drew said, "Hey, Dad, see you in Omaha." So that would be pretty cool. not going to lie.
Well, I know if we're both there, we'll be on opposite sides of the bracket. So if we have to play each other, it won't be till the finals, which I'm sure that would please everybody.
I would think so. Talking to Paul Mainieri, LSU baseball coach. Coach, you mentioned back during the Tennessee series, 3 close losses. That it was a raucous atmosphere. There was a lot going on. I know Trey Morgan had to deal with a lot. Kind of give me some indication of what the emotion will be like when you guys head back to Knoxville in a place where, again, 3 close losses, couple of extra innings. I've got to imagine there's going to be some real emotions in play for that one.
Well, first of all, I think that the little comment that I made during my radio show was way, way blown out of proportion. I mean, way blown out of proportion. First of all, there was very limited capacity in Knoxville when we were there. And so, it's like when there's 5,000, 10,000 people there, you don't hear anything because it's just a murmur of a crowd. Mm-hmm. Everybody, shouts out at each other. You can't hear anything. And there was just a couple of students standing above their dugout, and they were just riding Trey. And it was Trey's first experience in the SEC. And, of hearing, listen, the fans at Tennessee are no different than they are at Ole Miss or Arkansas or Texas A&M or anywhere else. Probably no different than they are at Alex Box Stadium. Mm-hmm. So, I think people made a big deal out of that. I had no idea that it was just like a tongue-in-cheek comment I was making during a radio show. It certainly got a lot more traction than I ever intended for it to be. I didn't mean in any way to be critical of Tennessee fans, not at all, I promise. And it was a learning experience for Trey. And there's no hard feelings whatsoever from our end towards anybody at Tennessee. So let me make that clear, first of all. Second of all, Tennessee has a great team. They're going to have a packed house. It's going to be a great atmosphere. We've played in front of, when we went to Ole Miss, we played in front of 10,000 people. They had lifted the cap off the attendance limitations. Our players played great at Ole Miss that whole weekend. So they embraced the atmosphere of a big crowd, and it's much more fun to play in front of big crowds, even if they're against you. So we're looking forward to it. Believe me, it's going to be a great experience for our players. Obviously, the stakes will be very high. There'll be a lot of LSU fans there as well.
Sure.
The NCAA requires the host school to make available, I think it's 600 tickets for the opposing team. So I'm sure we'll utilize all of our tickets. And it's just going to be a great experience, believe me. We're looking forward to it. We respect Tennessee immensely, and hopefully we'll go there and there'll be great competitive games.
Last thing from me, Coach, and this is just sort of more of a regional update. Can you tell us what's going on with Hayden Travinsky, kind of where he is in his process of getting back? Obviously a Shreveport kid, Airline High School product. Just kind of tell us where he is in his process of getting back and being able to return to the field.
Yeah, Hayden just had a lot of bad luck. It's just been so sad. Last summer he had to have knee surgery. He had torn his meniscus really bad and missed the whole fall practice, and then he came back in the spring. And I'm not really sure what started the problem with his elbow, but he had a stress reaction in the bone of his throwing elbow. So that took a long time to rehab, and he was limited in what he could do. He really wasn't even throwing the ball with full velocity for very long. And then all of a sudden one throw during a game, and he felt something weird in his elbow, and next thing you know, he's got a torn ulnar collateral ligament, which is the UCL, and it required Tommy John surgery in his throwing arm. So he had the surgery, so he's in the process now of rehabilitating his throwing arm, and obviously he's out for the season. So the poor kid, he's just had a rash of bad luck with injuries, and my heart breaks for him. He's a wonderful kid, and was really making an impact on our team. He'd been playing a lot. He had hit some home runs. He had done some really great things, and he just kept getting curtailed by these injuries until he eventually suffered an injury that ended his season. So unfortunately, I won't be the coach next year, so I can't tell you what the long-term prognosis is. That'll be up to the new coach, of course. Hopefully he'll return to full health and make his mark in the LSU program next year.
Absolutely. Coach, just before we let you go, I do want to say for me personally, you are one of the best coaches that we get to work with on a year-in, year-out basis when it comes to media. Every media member I've ever heard of since you announced your retirement has said the same thing. You understand and respect where we're coming from, and that in turn helps us to understand and respect where you're coming from. So I want to thank you for being so accessible, being so easy to work with, and being a guy that is open and honest with us when you come on the air. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. As I've said many times, it's been a tremendous honor to be the coach at LSU, and 15 years. It's a long tenure, and I've loved every second of it, and I'm going to miss it terribly. But I just think it's the right time for me to start to do some other things with my life and enjoy my family and just give them more of my time. This is a job that takes it's totally encompassing 365 days a year, and after 39 years in the business, I just think it's time for me to slow down a little bit and enjoy my family a little bit more.
Well, I will say this, Coach. Why don't you postpone that for about 3 more weeks? All right.
Well, I got a little left in the tank for that.
Okay.
I promise you, I'm giving it all I got right now.
Beautiful, Coach. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Good luck out in Knoxville.
All right, my pleasure.
That was Paul Mainieri, head coach of the LSU Tigers.